This tutorial is intended for players of all skill levels. It covers up everything you need to know about the game, from basic mechanics and console differences, to skip guides and category-specific tips. If you have any questions or feedback while watching this video, feel free to ask in the CNK channel on the OG Crash Discord server. With that out of the way, let's get started. This game has 3 versions: PS2, GameCube, and Xbox. PAL version is the most popular for any console because doing mini turbos and starting boosts feel more responsive. The best way to play the game is on Xbox, followed by GameCube, and finally PS2. PS2 has the longest loading screens that can be up to 16 seconds, while Xbox only needs 3. You can even get faster and consistent loads on Xbox by preloading every track and hub before runs. Currently, the Dolphin GameCube emulator is the second best option to play, using the load remover on the speedrun.com page. However, the version doesn't matter that much because the game is ranked by load remove time. Still, the best way to play is through a hard drive, either by emulator or by console modding. Reserves are an invisible value that decreases every frame. As long as the value is above 0, you can maintain your current speed. To increase reserves, you need to perform boosts, either by landing, doing mini turbos, or using turbo items or boost pads. You will lose your speed once reserves run out, you touch a wall, or break. Your primary method for obtaining reserves is doing mini turbos. When hitting a trigger, you will start a power slide, aka a drift, and the bar will appear and will start to fill up. Hit the other trigger and you will perform a mini turbo. You can chain up to 3 mini turbos for each drift. The bar that fills up practically needs to be at 100% in order to gain some reserves. The bar will freeze for a bit when it's full, so don't panic and time it correctly. Right at the start, jump immediately and do mini turbos when you start the course to keep your starting boost speed. If you get a bad starting boost or wait too long, you will lose your speed and will need to do 3 mini turbos to regain that speed. But there are some uses to do a short mini turbo. When doing so, your kart will turn harder than normal, giving you the chance to align better on the walls or clear tight turns. Short mini turbos give no reserves though, so make sure those won't run out. Although keeping max speed is the best option, driving in straight lines on some parts is faster instead of wiggling through the entire track, so plan your drift amounts and lines. Sometimes, when jumping on a ramp a bit after a mini turbo, you can get a higher jump, which will be really useful for some skips, so keep that in mind. Also, when you fall and respawn, you can jump before landing and immediately start drifting. When drifting on a ramp, keep drifting and doing mini turbos. At any time while still drifting in the air, you can jump mid-air. This has some uses like keeping reserves, do some skips, and more. You can only drift holding a direction for just 2 seconds. There is a threshold of 2 seconds for both directions. When drifting with no direction, the value will slowly reset to 0. And doing a mini turbo seems to reset that as well. This video explains that in detail. I'll leave a link in the description. This will be helpful for skips that require long periods of air drifting. You can also turn far tighter in the air by holding a direction while in the air and holding the brake button. You will perform a U-turn, but at the cost of killing your reserves entirely. This has some uses like being able to turn it up for skip setups. All characters go at the same speed once they have turbo speed. This can only be gained by driving on a turbo pad or using a turbo item. This is why the turning character is the best option. As it can drive closer to walls at curves, and sticking to one engine only is smarter for muscle memory. The amount of Wumpas can make you increase your base normal speed. However, it is so minimal that driving close to the walls instead of hitting the boxes is still faster, and after getting turbo speed, they stop having any effect. So don't fixate on the Wumpa count. Here is a list of every character stat. As you can see, Coco and Engine are the best characters on Adventure Mode, and Sam, Polar, and Pura for all cups. But the setups for some skips can be different with turn 6 and 7. So please stick with any of these when learning because of any percent. The reason why most of these skips work is because of the checkpoint update abuse. You can watch the full explanation on this video in the description. However, to summarize it, the only way you can touch any checkpoint on the map is whenever you are in an air drift state or got hit by an item. Therefore, the use of TNTs is crucial because you can still maneuver to get out of bounds and get close to a checkpoint to then count it by exploding. Most of these skips require certain items, so if you don't get the correct ones, leave them in a convenient spot or in the path of the CPUs so the trash items don't get in your way. Careful because on some versions, some items, especially the ice mine, can get invisible on the next lap, and the hitbox even stays in the same spot. Always throw these ahead and away from you. Placed TNTs will disappear after 90 seconds, so if you set up a TNT, always use it on the next lap. I will refer to the intended track strats as shortcuts and the unintended ones as skips. Before attempting any of these skips, I recommend practicing and enjoying every track normally, and then watch either a speedrun or time trials on Cyberscore to try to improve your lines and skill. I will leave a link in the description. Without further ado, let's start with the tracks. This track at a high level is hard to keep reserves. For that reason, in the grass from the shortcut, drifting is better than jumping to avoid slowdown. When taking the shortcut, do not underestimate the size of the hitbox of this log. Always take a wide turn so you don't crash. When trying to get on top of this shortcut, sometimes you can get a high jump, which can throw you off and could make staying on the ledge harder. To avoid that, don't jump straight at the edge, jump a bit early. When reaching the grass part before the wooden bridge, keep jumping on the grass to cut the corner faster. To reach the hanging bridge, avoid jumping close to the ropes so you don't hit a wall. At the start of the race, go backwards and try to jump behind these rocks. Jumping at a 90-degree angle from the grass makes the jump more consistent. After that, you turn to the wall so you don't fall. If you fall, restarting is faster than respawning. Drive up the hill. Pay attention to your character at the minimap. Look at the positions of your point when being up and down the hill. The goal is to go down and start driving forward before the minimap updates. That way, you will skip an entire lap. Normally, staying almost at the top of the hill, then driving down and going back quickly should do the trick. You can stay on top of the hill as much time as you want, but I really recommend you to try and get a good time because once you understand the checkpoint system, it will be easier to understand some later harder skips. If you get a fast checkpoint update or no update at all you have to do is stay parked at the top of the hill for a bit longer until you get the checkpoint update. At the end, when reaching the anti-gravity part, spamming jump on it saves time, but doing so the entire loop will end with your reserves. So, when landing, you can do 1 mini turbo to one direction and one to the other, and then keep jumping until the loop ends. Right before entering the temple, you can jump out of bounds to reach a checkpoint to spawn on the other side of the track. To do a proper jump, anywhere between these two boxes is where you must jump a tiny bit after ending a mini turbo. Reach that spot at like a 30-ish degree angle from the lines of the track. Then, at the moment of the jump, go right for a bit and then full to the left. Keep in mind that you will need to keep turbo speed and a lot of reserves to reach the other side. You can practice this jump by being on 8th place, get a turbo item, and use it before the ramp with the fire statues. Or just use save states if you're on an emulator. After learning your line, I recommend placing the TNT high on the air and be careful to stay on the track. Practicing this will give you space to place another TNT in case you can go for a double skip. For a safe and successful skip, aim for the floating turbo pad. Or aim a bit more to the left to get a better spawn. However, reaching this checkpoint is riskier and requires max reserves. Jumping on this ramp at the corner can get you out of bounds and respawn you behind the finish line. Place a TNT ahead of the corner in the air. On the next lap, enter the ramp at the middle and jump at a 45-degree angle from the corner right before leaving the ramp. This is by no means consistent. The jump feels somewhat random, but I have felt this is the best approach. Now, after you get out of bounds, aim towards this floating turbo pad, and pay attention to the TNT ticking. Just before it explodes, turn left a bit to these floating crates. Be careful because if you turn too soon, you will get back to the start of the lap. You can get a slower but safer respawn by going straight. That will respawn you right after the anti-gravity section. Store some reserves and hit the first turbo pad. Be careful because the edges can make you lose reserves, so jump before leaving the ledge or just be careful with the side. At this section, land on the snow and spam jump to avoid the slowdown. You can spam both triggers to jump instantly. After doing the rock shortcut, start a drift when landing, then immediately cut it out and jump to the left to get a turning buff. On the rest of the laps, don't take the turbo pad again. Instead, keep drifting while falling onto the ramp. Place a TNT at the border between the road and the snow. On the next lap, jump at a 70-degree angle from the midpoint between the track and the snow. Remember to finish your drift a bit before jumping to get a bigger jump. Doing the Tiny Temple TNT skip first will help you understand the jump physics. After successfully clipping out of bounds, you can take two approaches. Align vertically to the edge of the road from underneath, and 1 second before the TNT explodes, turn left to avoid the finish line checkpoint and teleport behind. For some reason, this will count as a lap. If your minimap point went in reverse normally, try to turn left a bit earlier. If you lost a lap, you didn't turn enough or turned too soon. As a second option, you can also spawn right behind the lap by turning wide while falling aligned to the left edge of this curve, and then fully turn to the left before the crate explodes. This method is easier than the other, but saves a bit less time. If you clipped out of bounds but lost reserves, keep falling to the floating crates. That will give you a chance to still save time with this spawn. Place a TNT on the left side or in the center of the left turbo path. The trick involves getting out of bounds with a TNT and then aligning yourself to get a glitched lap. The out of bounds jump is the most finicky part of this skip, as there is no consistent setup. You will need to experiment and find what works best for you. If I can give any advice, is to line yourself up to jump at the end of the ramp, right at the middle. As you hit the turbo pad, keep your angle as straight as possible, so stop drifting just before touching it and turn a bit to the right to straighten your kart. Once you're out of bounds, align yourself with the right side of the track. Other visual cues from the track itself become unreliable after your reserves run out because the camera perspective changes. Instead, watch the minimap. The best cue for turning is the exact moment your minimap icon moves to the finish line. Right then, you turn to the right and align yourself with the same angle as the finish line. It is safer to undershoot than overshoot, since undershooting can still result in a single glitch lap, whereas overshooting may prevent you from getting any lap at all. There are 3 possible setups: risky but fast triple lap, recommended triple lap, and safe double lap. For the risky setup, place a TNT, drive to the middle of this curve, then turn around and go for the attempt. Even if you clear the jump, your reserves will be extremely tight, leaving very little time to reach the finish line and turn correctly, so this is insanely precise. For more leeway, here's the recommended setup. Turn around behind this turbo pad, jump onto the path, and drift. This gives you additional reserves, making the setup much more manageable. The final method is the safest if you don't want to lose much time on a failed attempt. Place the TNT during the first lap, then attempt the jump on the second lap. If you miss the jump, you can simply continue the race with minimal time loss. If you have a triple TNT, place another TNT for the first method as a backup in case your initial jump attempt fails. When entering the iced section on the second and third lap, cut your drift and spam jump to get better turning on the spiral. The rest is just driving normally. Be careful with the edges of these ramps because they can make you lose reserves. Drive to the wrong way and fall at the end of the tunnel. Turn back and stay on the left side, and before exiting the tunnel, drift and stay airborne. And be very careful with the anti-gravity magnet physics. The best option is to exit at an angle towards the sky from the center of the side. Use this tile here as reference, and aim to any of these parts of the tentacle. If you land on the sweet spot, keep doing mini turbos and drive to the left, putting yourself in this position. Be sure to finish your third mini turbo and then jump. When you are out of bounds, aim to enter at this spot. If you're too low, the skip might not work, because the magnet physics screwed you over. To avoid that, get a turbo item, and instead of bouncing on the tentacles, cut your air drift with a jump and U-turn to the left. This is the ideal method for speedruns because it's easier, and the other method requires a lot of luck. When entering the spot, do a U-turn, and this is the tricky part. Under the track, depending on the console version, the sweet spot may feel different. When you hit the underside, try to land high and be as face-fronted as possible. Be careful to not land on these spots because you can hit some hazards. If you fail the drift, restarting is faster than respawning. drift at the moment you hit the underside and turn left to leave a small chunk of the sky on your top right screen corner. Then, tap occasionally to the right to keep it that way. If your point looks really close ahead of the finish line, you landed on a good spot, but it's not over yet. If it looks really close to the finish line, be ready because your checkpoint can get messed up. To fix this, right after the dot moves, turn to the left in small bits until your entire screen turns black, but not enough to see the other side of the sky. When you correct your checkpoint, just keep pressing right. If instead everything went normal, turn left when the final lap message appears to guarantee the final lap. The spinning blade hitbox is way bigger than it appears, so be careful. When reaching the pipe section, jump and while in the air, you should be able to watch the position of the first blade down on the glass. So position yourself beforehand to avoid getting hit. When landing, keep yourself on the middle of the dark side of the pipe and keep jumping in a straight line. The gravity force will pull you down and give you a slight speed boost. This is a really harder version of the Jungle Boogie skip. So if you are doing the skip for the first time, I recommend mastering that skip first and then watch this video that I will leave on the description. The video is a template of how you should approach the skip, but everyone has their own different setup, because this skip requires masterful precision and timing. So you must try different setups and find the one you feel the most comfortable and consistent. One thing I could add to that video is that, similar to the Jungle Boogie skip, it really matters how you backtrack and the timing when you go forward. You really should watch a lot of any percent runs to see the differences and practice a lot. If you're in second on the last lap, you can't win anymore with this glitch. You will need to restart or do the last lap normally. First, let's talk about these jump pads. The CPU difficulty doesn't matter. They will always switch the jump pad positions, so always aim to the left one on the first lap. On the sand section after the clock, you can jump on the sand to cut the corner faster. Just be careful not to hit the shack. You can jump to this spot to skip that entire curve. You need to be angled before the jump in order to reach the cactus zone. If you try to jump straight like the jump pads, you won't be able to turn enough or get enough height. A good setup to get a good jump is to be drifting, but stop a bit before reaching the turbo pad. Right when you are in the air, hold left. Getting out of bounds here will respawn you right before the clock. Plan your drifts after the shack so you don't hit the fences, but if you lost reserves, you only need 2 full mini turbos to avoid the death plane. After jumping over it, touch the side of the track to count the lap and just freefall. If you failed, go to the turbo pad ahead, turn back and do 1 mini turbo, then jump. First, you need to jump around this fence. I recommend doing a double jump to avoid getting slowed down by the sand. After the second jump, do a U-turn. Pay a lot of attention where you land, because the next step will depend on this. Watch where the death plane is and look at the point of the edge. Then look at this inside corner before that. You should be falling even before that corner. Having reserves before falling are crucial to reach the lap checkpoint easily, so depending where you are, do 2 or 3 minute turbos to then drift to the right before falling. When falling, keep doing the 3 minute turbos and do not let go the drift. Aim for this rock wall. When you are aligned, keep holding left until your minimap dot reaches close to this point, right at the middle of the curve, but never further from that. Then start doing small taps to the left so the drift doesn't cut off. When you get the lap, turn fully to the right. Plan your drifts prior so you can do the last drift properly. It is important that you take a wide angle so you can correct it later on, so don't drift too straight. If your minimap point didn't teleport to the finish line, you went too far right or turned too soon. If it did teleport but didn't get a lap, you went too far to the left. Try to get a wider angle. If you fail either fence jump or the skip, drift around the worm and try to do it again. When facing against Norm, this skip can get a bit tricky. If you are too fast, he will almost always hit you with a bubble. So in order to avoid that, you can slow down a bit before doing B-side, or leave an item right in the middle of the road when landing on the clock. Don't grab a triple item in case you get a shield for worm jump. Getting to this desert section will count as a lap, and it's faster than going the normal way. To get there are two ways. On time trial mode, get purposely eaten by a worm, and the moment you are lingering in the air before getting swallowed, restart. Now you will be immune to the worms. In a normal race, with a shield or a mask will do. Now, aim for the left side of the sand hole, then jump and go to the right. You can now drive forward until you get the lap. Try to cut a drift to the right before jumping because otherwise it will be hard to turn enough. After doing B-side on the first lap and the worm jump on the second, yes, this skip is only faster with worm jump, get close to this hill of sand. Then, drive ahead and clip through the wall. Take an angle the same as the line of the ledge. Start a drift to the right, fall, and do 3 minute turbos without any direction. Do not stop drifting. The moment your minimap point teleports, do quick taps to the right to try and get the lap faster out of bounds. But if you didn't, don't worry, you will spawn right behind the finish line. Do a worm jump. After that, go to this same hill of sand. Pay attention to this little peak. Reverse a bit and, when driving forward, brake slide from side to side when you touch the peak. Go back and repeat until you get a lap. This skip is not recommended for runs because of how inconsistent it is. It's even possible to lose a lap. This is why this skip is way harder than JV skip and DSD. You can jump over this rock wall to skip the entire clock section, but only on Xbox and American PS2 versions. You need a lot of reserves and turbo speed before the fence shortcut, so get as much as you can beforehand. To keep the turbo speed, do an empty drift and correct your kart. Jump at this line of the ramp to get better chances. Get close to the wall after the jump and pray that you don't get stuck in the rock, because there's no way out. If you think you got a really high jump, you can power through it. If not, just U-turn to the wall. This skip is also not recommended in runs because of how inconsistent it is and because you can get stuck on it, killing the run. At the cogs section, don't jump on them. Instead, keep drifting on them. At this turbo path, start a drift, do just 2 mini turbos in the air and then jump. Don't jump instantly because it will drain your reserves, and don't do 3 mini turbos because the handling will be really hard to control. In the last corner, take a wide turn, jump and land on the ramp with a drift, but cut it halfway through and jump again. That will give you great turning. Be really careful to not overshoot the turn and watch your reserves afterwards. You can hit a TNT, get out of bounds here and aim to the finish line for a faster lap. Place the TNT parallel to this stud and at the border of the cog. On the next lap, drive as straight as you can on the second and third cog before jumping. Keep in mind that you can jump way later than you can see. Aim to the front wall as close to the corner as possible, but without hitting the right wall. When you clip through the wall, go right and aim to the finish line to get spawned behind it. Doing this skip twice in one race is really hard because clearing the jump without turbo speed is super difficult. So place the TNT on the second lap and try to clear it on the third. Similar to Tiny Temple, spam jump anytime the track folds upwards. Just be careful with the rollers and with your reserves. In the last roller section, you can instead do mini turbos and avoid the hazards. Place a TNT in the air and in the middle of this line, not too close to the wall. On the next lap, don't jump on this ramp because it will nerf your jump. Instead, jump early or don't jump at all. Then, jump at the next ramp and go left. When you clear the wall, aim for this rock over here. It will respawn you at the last section of the track. You can brake 1 second after clearing the wall so you can get a better spawn, but this will require some practice for the timing. When starting any race, pay a lot of attention on your first item, because if it is a TNT, you can place it as high as possible so it gives you space in case you can place a second one and not be hit by the CPUs. But the reaction has to be instant. If you got a triple TNT at the last item box, you can still place it high, go back here and then try to do a double. If you didn't get a TNT until here, you can still look for one and place it before the CPUs overtake you. To get through the conveyor belt smoothly, jump right at the edge and immediately do a second jump. This gives you time to adjust your direction for the second compactor. Either go straight or drift toward the edge. Practice drifting along the edge so you don't get squished, because reserves will be needed for the next skip. Drive on the side of the bendings of the pipe to drive the shortest path. Be really careful at the end of the pipe because you can lose turbo speed. Jump just before the exit to avoid that. You need full reserves to do the skip. If you lose them on the conveyor belt, it's still possible, but can be tough. Look at the 3 lanes on the left section, number from 1 to 3. Changing lanes gives you extra height on your jump, which is key for the setup. The out of bounds spot is slightly after you exit the shadow area. Because reserves are required, you will need to do a drift before jumping. So your approach should be doing mini turbos on the pipe, hit the turbo path, do 1 mini turbo to go onto the second lane, exit the shadow, change lanes, and then jump. After the jump, aim at the corner of this building. A 90-degree jump from the pipe gives the most height, but watch out for the invisible barrier. To avoid this, just zigzag to enter the spot. After getting out of bounds, focus on the road ahead. land anywhere inside or ahead of this pothole and you will get a lap. As soon as you land, start drifting left, do the 3-minute turbos and keep holding left. On top of the screen, you will see a corner, a curve and then a second corner. Once the second corner passes the center of your screen, keep drifting but don't hold any direction. When your minimap point teleports, you can hold left again to get a better spawn. You will respawn just before the finish line. After some practice, you will notice that small adjustments are sometimes needed. If you drift too far left, you can miss the trigger entirely and lose the lap, and there is no recovery at that point. Again, I recommend using save states on an emulator, or get yourself to 8th place, get a turbo item, and use it at the start of the pipe. If you didn't fly far enough and missed the lap checkpoint, don't worry, you can still save the lap. Just follow the same steps as before, and you will respawn behind the lap to enter the second lap. Be careful because sometimes you can get a glitchy drift, which in this case you will need a different approach when falling. This can happen way more often with the next strat, so I will explain that later. Once you've mastered flying on this track, it's time to find the sweet spot for a double lap. I strongly recommend using save states for this part. Finding the correct spot can be frustrating, and replaying the entire course repeatedly would take forever. The best landing spot is right here, in the center where the pothole begins to fold. This can be tricky because your flying height will vary from attempt to attempt. Approach slightly angled to the left, then perform a U-turn to the right to hit the spot. Use a save state and repeat the setup until you feel comfortable with your angles and positioning. You can also experiment with different landing spots along this line to find what works best for you. However, finding the sweet spot isn't the end. Each jump will be slightly different, so once you've identified your landing point, create a save state just before landing on the pipe and practice hitting the spot again from there. This helps you adapt to different flying heights. When performing a U-turn, react quickly as soon as you initiate your drift. There is a risk of getting a glitchy drift, which will cause you to turn much harder than intended. If that happens, stop holding left immediately and instead use small taps to the right to correct your angle. After that, aim for the first corner instead of the second. Once your minimap point teleports, you can begin turning left again. Be very precise with your adjustments, as small inputs can make a big difference. If you don't get the toasty lap, you can spawn right at the end of the pipe by now aligning to this car magnet, and after the third mini turbo, stop holding any direction. When you respawn, turn back, get some reserves, and turn again without losing speed. You will have to make the widest turn ever to not die or hit a wall. You need to go to the bottom lane in order to clear the turn. Now, you can go for a second attempt. Don't waste any amount of reserves because you won't reach it. If you're going for this, practice this a lot because the turn is very hard. After the robots, there's a small bump that can easily throw you off your line. Hop over it to stay stable. On the final turn, finish a mini turbo on the last ramp, then jump and turn right. As soon as you land, start a drift, but cancel it immediately. This gives you a stronger turn. However, only do this if your reserves are filled up. Maintaining reserves here is more important than turning harder, so don't risk it. If you're fast, the train will block the start of the tunnel on lap 2. If you're slow, it may appear at the end of the tunnel on the last lap instead. Be prepared for both and adjust. When racing against Geary, He will be super fast at the start and can hit you with items early on. Always aim for the triple item box for a boost or projectiles. If you don't get any of those, stay in the left lane and keep as much distance as possible. Once you're past the tunnel, you're in the clear. Place a TNT between the first and second turbo pads, slightly ahead and in the air. This position is the safest, as CPUs won't hit it. You will need enough reserves and turbo speed to perform this skip. Start a left mini turbo about halfway along the turbo path, release and jump almost at the last possible moment while continuing to turn left. Getting the correct jump is extremely difficult and can feel somewhat random. If done correctly, you will clip out of bounds. From there, fly toward the section where the glass pane shortcut is located. Performing this skip once can save up to 9 seconds. When falling, don't go normal. Start falling way earlier, drifting on this side. Don't worry, you will still hit the turbo pad from underneath. Do the mini turbos to keep your reserves. Each time the road folds upwards, remember to spam jump. At these jump pads, never jump on them. That will not give you any height. Instead, go normally and jump when you touch it. Or even better, drift on them to do mini turbos in the air. When arriving to the second anti-gravity section, jump onto the rail and land on the upward side of the road. When landing on the rail, don't press any direction because you can lose reserves. When landing on the track, hold left or right to absorb the slide to the back. Be careful to not fall because it will respawn you way behind. You need to drift and avoid the dead planes to then go to this purple section while drifting. That will respawn you there. This skip has two variants, without turbo speed and with turbo speed. For the turbo-less strat, go in the middle of the track and when you cross the finish line, draw an imaginary inverted question mark. That will be your trajectory, exiting at the middle of the left turbo path. You need to not hit the building by passing through the right side. If you think you turn too wide, you can fix this by doing quick mini turbos. This video on the description can also help you with the setup. If you come with turbo speed, instead of entering the left turbo path, stay on the left lane and exit at the middle of the turbo paths, drawing an inverted J. You can go over the windows of the building to clear the death plane, or keep passing through the right. You will need to hold right the entire time and do quick mini turbos to clear it. If you fail it, use the first method. In both setups, after you get past the building, do not stop drifting and keep holding left. Look at the road underneath and decide where to land. These are the best spots to land. A way to see it is that if you touch the side of the road, you guaranteed touching the checkpoint. On the wrecked section, the death plane is too far away from the checkpoint, so it won't update. The green section is your safest bet, but be careful. If you think you are too far away, it will still update the checkpoint, but falling is way slower. You can die and respawn quicker by cutting the drift with a jump at the same level of the lower rail and U-turn. After respawning successfully, instead of driving normally, now fall right after the turbo path. Then fall driving backwards. This will make you spawn faster underneath. After that, choose if you will do the next lap with or without turbo speed. If you fall while attempting this shortcut, jump off the cliff after respawning and perform a U-turn. The landing boost should give you enough speed to clear the jump. If you're low on reserves, keep doing mini turbos while crossing over the lasers. Be very careful with the turbo path in this section, as it is highly likely to make you lose your reserves. To avoid this, jump about halfway across it. You can drop below the hanging chains to respawn further ahead and skip the entire ramp section. Touching the handle should be enough. Against Below, you should brake and let him overtake you right after getting the crate. Otherwise, he will hit you with a missile. To get a chance for a TNT on the first lap, you need to hit the crate before Below, so lock in with the starting boost. However, he will always fire a missile immediately after, so hit the crate first, then brake instantly so he overtakes you, then do the warp. If you get a bomb, snipe the crate ahead for a second chance. Once you get a TNT, place it and get it onto your head before going through the portal. The fastest way to do it is to do 1 mini turbo after the respawn boost and brake slide to the other side. Then place it, hit it, and go. Start a drift when entering the turbo path. Keep doing the mini turbos, and the moment you pass through the portal, jump mid-drift and go to the left out of bounds. This will respawn you way ahead of this blue section. This skip is only possible on the American PS2 version. Right at the last ramp, you can skip the first portal and the warp by landing onto the track on the left. You need to jump over the death plane, which is at the same level of the floating Wumpa crate. So jump at the last moment. Jump high and then U-turn to the left. This is a variation of the previous skip. By hitting a very specific point on the track, you can trigger a double lap. You must clip through the edge of the track and die on the exact same frame as the lap count. To improve your chances, once you get over the Wumpa crate, you turn back and then to the right. Keep in mind that this setup is extremely precise, so it's not recommended for regular runs, as you can fail it really easily. This is the riskiest skip in the run. If you fail it, there is no backup. You will lose an entire lap. Only attempt this if you are fully confident. Exit the turbo path in a drift while keeping your line as straight as possible. The moment you leave the path, begin turning left. Perform 3D mini turbos and aim to land on the left side underneath the track. Once you land, drift to the right. Watch for the sun and the floating finish line. Align yourself between those 2 points and then hold left. Do 3 mini turbos, keep holding it as if you were doing a 4th one, and after that, continue drifting without any direction. The respawn location is really hard to control, so hope that you get the best spawn. If you're extremely lucky, it is possible to do a toasty lap with this skip. Don't try this on purpose because, as said before, this is the riskiest skip in the run. And with this, we've finally finished explaining all the track skips. Now, what's left is to learn and implement them in your runs. You can start with the ones that look the most interesting to you. But with how much some can save and how hard they are, I recommend the following order: Rail Skip, Cactus Jump, Jungle Boogie Skip, Out of Time Old Skip, Electron Ultra, Spaceway TNT, Thunderstruck TNT, Worm Jump and Seaside, Ruins Ultra, DSD Skip, B-Side, Temple TNT, Spaceway Ultra, Assembly Lane Single and Toasty Lap, Clockwork TNT, Gorge TNT version 1 and 2, Alley TNT, and Ram TNT. There are some strats that today are just not worth to go for them in runs. Either they are insanely difficult or doesn't save much time. Therefore, I don't have any advice to give. I will include them in case someone can figure out something to do with them. Now, I will give some tips for the rest of the categories. In Adventure mode, you can enter any locked race by doing a blind glitch. This trick gets its name because if you do it, your screen will fade to black for a few seconds during the entire race. If you go to a warpath, make the text appear and enter the portal without showing any text, you will enter to the last warpath visited. This allows to fight the bosses directly without needing to do the 3 trophy races for each hub. This is the reason why the any percent unrestricted category exists. Currently, there is no way to do this glitch on Terra or Vidlow's Citadel. Therefore, you have to clear them normally. To clear the glitch, just enter any portal. Pausing will give you a clear view only on the hubs, so use that to enter the portals. Fun fact, the effect stays even if you exit Adventure mode. This is a community-made spreadsheet where time trial goals are set to dominate a track and get insane times. In the page you can see who has completed each god rank and with what time. The link for it will be in the description. On the 101% category, you only need the gold relics, so don't focus on hitting all the crates. Almost all token challenges can be summarized into getting the letters first and then do the skips, except for on Barin Ruins, get the turbo item first and then the letters, then do the skip. On DSD is the opposite. First do 2 laps and then go for the letters. On Out of Time, leave the letter K at last after going for 2 B-sides. You could risk going for the K letter first to try to get a mask for Worm Jump, but I don't recommend it. On Android Alley, the jump physics with the letter C just doesn't work sometimes, so jump on the turbo pad and jump again to have better control. On Electron Avenue, brake before touching the left jump pad and then jump after getting onto it to get the letter N consistently. The American PS2 and Xbox versions have a unique glitch that allows the player to access the last relic with only the blue gem. So, to get the true ending, where all you need is the gold relics, you only need the blue tokens and the gem. This is why the true ending category is console exclusive. And that will be all. Hope this video was useful in any way, And if you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask on the CNK channel on the OG Crash server. We will help you in any way you need. There will be a pinned comment in this video in case there are new discoveries about the game. I will either link a video for a new skip or a short description of it. Don't forget to leave your feedback on this video in the comments as well. Thank you for your support, hope to see you soon, and brace yourself!
For Crash Nitro Kart!